Hello, my name is Andrea di Robilant. I am an Italian journalist and author, and I will be talking to you today about the voyages of the Zen brothers in the North Atlantic. The voyages of two Venetian brothers, Niccolò and Antonio Zen, who came from a very prominent Venetian family and who allegedly made an extraordinary journey to the North Atlantic, to Iceland, to Greenland, and perhaps maybe even to the coast of North America. But I wanted to say a word or two about how I came about this story. I'm not a professional geographer. As I said, I'm a journalist and a writer of historical books. And one day I was in the library in Venice, in the Marciana, working on another book. And a gentleman comes in, an American tourist who had just walked off one of the large cruise ships that come to Venice. And he walked in with a little piece of paper which had two names written on it. And he said, I've come here on a sort of pilgrimage. I'm looking for the house where these two men lived, because in my neck of the woods in Connecticut, my friends and I have heard the story that these two Venetians came to the coast of North America in the 14th century. And he showed me this piece of paper, and on the piece of paper were the names of Niccolò and Antonio Zen, who at the time did not mean anything to me. So I looked in a book of Venetian palaces. I found a family palace of the Zen family, and sent the gentleman on his way so that he could take a picture of himself in front of the facade of the Palazzo. And then a few days later, I was walking by in another area of town, and I passed by a plaque, and on the plaque it said, Niccolò and Antonio Zen lived in this palace, these celebrated Venetians who traveled to the North Atlantic. And I said, damn, I sent the American gentleman to the wrong place. This is the Palazzo where these two brothers lived. And by that time, I was rather intrigued by the fact that I had never heard of these two Venetians, even though I am myself partly Venetian and was working and studying in Venice at the time. And so I went back to the library the next day and looked for material traces about these two Venetians. And it so happens that in the library in Venice, there is the original book that tells the story of these two Venetians. It's a book that was published in 1558 by a great-grandson of one of the two navigators. And it tells this remarkable story of the journey of Niccolò, who goes to the North Sea looking for new markets. He was a tradesman, a merchant, and he travels to the North Sea because he wants to get into the markets of the North Atlantic, and especially the cod market. Venice had long been trading in the Mediterranean, but the Venetian Republic realized that it really had to cut into the trade of the North Atlantic and the North Sea in order to maintain its dominant position in trade. And in fact, there had been for some time state convoys to the North Sea in order to establish commercial bases. So Niccolò Zen, a very prominent merchant in Venice at the end of the 14th century, travels to the North Sea. And at a certain point, his ship is destroyed in a storm, and he is shipwrecked very far north in a place called Frislanda. And from there on, all sorts of things happen to him. He eventually travels to Iceland and then to Greenland, and then he comes back to this strange place called Frislanda, where he is rejoined by his brother Antonio, his younger brother, and Antonio later participates in this extraordinary journey across the Atlantic, and then he returns to Friesland and eventually to Venice. This is the story told in the book, in the sense that the great grandson of whose name was Niccolò Zen as well, who has been called Niccolò Zen the Younger to distinguish him from the older one, decided to put together the material that he had in the family library, torn letters, rotting maps, etc., which had been gathering dust in the family archive. And he puts together this book and draws a map based on, he says, the charts and what remained of the charts that he had inherited from his forefathers. And this is the map that we see now. And this is the map that I saw at the Venetian Library, and which utterly intrigued me, because what fascinated me was that it looks like the North Atlantic has been reduced to a sort of mirror image of the Mediterranean. In other words, we see it as an enclosed sea. And this was very intriguing to me, because in the 16th century, when the book comes out, there had been all sorts of explorations in North America, and the view of the world had changed a great deal. And so it seemed to me that this image of the North Atlantic reflected something older, that predated the discoveries in the New World. Now, the book itself and the map that you have seen had an extraordinary story. The map had a huge impact on cartography. It was used by Gerard Mercator to complete the first map of the world. He literally took the map that you have seen on the screen and put it into his map to complete what was in effect the first complete map of the world, which came out in 1569. And so that gave an enormous notoriety to the so-called Zen map. Not only that, but it was reproduced by Ortelius and other great geographers and publishers of the time, so that it becomes a fundamental piece in Renaissance cartography. Now, it doesn't stop there. At that time, John, a close friend of Mercator, John Dee, who was a very close advisor of Queen Elizabeth, obtained a copy of the Zen map, and in effect used the map and the story of the Zen brothers as a foundation for the documents that Queen Elizabeth had commissioned to him to legitimize the makings of a British Empire in the North Atlantic. In other words, the story of the Zen voyages is used in the 4 documents that John Dee put together for Queen Elizabeth to create the legal and historical basis for British projection, imperial projection in the North Atlantic. So again, this gave even more importance and resonance to the Zeno map and to the Zen voyages.